What's happening? Happy Friday to you and yours. Thanks for joining us. A quick note before we get started. This will be the last Friday podcast until the week of July 14th. So make a note of that. This is the last time we'll go on Friday right here on YouTube until the week of July 14th. Several personal obligations to take care of. So until camp, we go Monday and Wednesday at 3 p.m. live on YouTube. But this will be the last Friday podcast until the week of July 14th. All right. I appreciate every single one of you. Today's podcast has been recorded. Again, I've got personal obligations, so I appreciate every single one of you ahead of time, and no super chats, none of that stuff. You know, multiple listeners, multiple viewers, they've told me they believe that left guard is still a problem. And some believe that left guard is a big problem. And I will tell you this. Am I super confident in what the Patriots have at left guard? No, I'm not. There is an inherent lack of confidence in that spot on the offensive line. It's 100% understandable to have that lack of confidence. Cole Strange, former first-round pick. We all remember when he was drafted by Bill Belichick, and he has been up and down. That's the nature of his NFL career so far, up and down. Right before his significant injury that took him out for most of last season, he was playing some of the best football of his NFL career. But then he had the injury. They try to shift him to center. We don't know what Cole Strange is going to be by week 1 of 2025 because of that roller coaster nature of what he has done. Wes Schweitzer, you know how many snaps he played in 2024? I want you to guess. I want you to guess how many snaps Wes Schweitzer played last year. Ready? He played 1 snap. 1 snap all of last season. Layden Robinson showed some flashes here and there last season, but is his fit the right fit for this Josh McDaniels offense? Can he stay healthy? Big question marks about him. Sidy Sow. I was optimistic about Sidy Sow before OTAs began, and I still have a little bit of optimism for Sow with this offensive line, but there has been zero written about him. He's been banged up from time to time. Last year, he had an injury that cost him a bunch of games and snaps. So when you look at all of it in totality, Cole Strange, question marks, Schweitzer, 1 snap last year, Robinson, question marks, Sow, question marks, which leads us to one man in particular who was drafted a couple of months ago. I'm talking about Jarrod Wilson. If Jarrod Wilson is healthy, he has a huge opportunity staring him right in the face. If Jarrod Wilson can get on the field this coming week for mandatory minicamp, if he can get on the field for training camp, and he looks like he's moving around very well, he has an opportunity here to leapfrog everybody we just mentioned and become the starting left guard of this football team. It is a gigantic opportunity. And when you're talking about your rookie season, you've got to take advantage of every opportunity that is put on the table in front of you. So if Jarrod Wilson is healthy, if he proves to be healthy and he gets out on the practice field, and we're talking about him out there taking reps during training camp, he has a shot. He has a shot to take over left guard. He could capitalize on this for a bunch of different reasons. Let's start here. Jarrod Wilson was a guard before he was a center. His first 2 years at Georgia, he practiced at guard. It wasn't until after those first couple of years that Georgia slid him to center. So his natural position is guard, interior offensive line. And we see this all the time. We see it with Schweitzer, and we understand that the Patriots at least tried it with Cole Strange last year. We know about Ted Karras and his history. There are guys that can play center and left or right guard. The interior offensive line, the transition is not as crazy. It's not as tough as it is when you talk about trying to go from guard to tackle, and that's even switching sides at tackle. Those challenges are tougher challenges. So Wilson has experience. He's practiced at that position before. He's played guard before. So this is not completely a fish out of water. And then when you look at Wilson's numbers at Georgia last year, They were good. And I know he was playing center, but let's just focus on what Wilson did last year at Georgia. According to Pro Football Focus, his overall grade was 81.2. Not too shabby for a guy who was a first-time starter for Georgia, playing a relatively new position. Not bad, an 81.2 overall grade. He was even better in pass protection. His PFF pass blocking grade was 84. So when you think about the weaknesses of this offensive line, one of the things that I have discussed is Garrett Bradbury. And Bradbury struggled mightily last year with Minnesota, especially protecting the quarterback. It's one of the main reasons why Minnesota moved on from Bradbury. I mean, they drafted the guy in the first round, but they moved on from him and they signed who they feel is an upgrade, and they let him walk. And they let him walk because they felt like his pass protection was not up to snuff, and they could not survive in the NFC North week in, week out if they were going to have somebody like Bradbury at center. And they also knew, Minnesota did, that they were moving to J.J. McCarthy. Young quarterback. For all intents and purposes, a rookie quarterback because of the injury that cost him last season. So the last thing Minnesota wanted was Garrett Bradbury in front of J.J. McCarthy. And when you think about that, it's concerning because all we know about Bradbury and what he has done and not done, putting him in front of Drake May, another young quarterback who's played all of 10 games at the NFL level, that's concerning, and some would say dangerous. So when you look inside the numbers, the analytics for Jared Wilson while he was at Georgia, really good overall grade, really, really good pass blocking grade, according to Pro Football Focus. And just like when we talked about Will Campbell, one of the main talking points regarding Campbell leading into the draft, during the draft, after the draft, was the level of competition. How many times have you heard people say, how many times have you seen people write, hey, Will Campbell played in the SEC. Will Campbell played against a bunch of dominant pass rushers in the country. And it's true. The SEC is seen, on balance, year in, year out, as the best conference in college football. And when you look at the level of competition, it's just different. The task that you have as an offensive lineman battling against these defensive linemen of the SEC is just at a different level than the Big Ten and any other conference you want to name. So when we talked about Will Campbell going against some elite pass rushers in the best conference in the country, you can look at Jared Wilson and say he had to deal with some of the best defensive linemen in the country. Because last time I checked, Georgia is also in the SEC. So the level of competition he was facing in college, that means something. When a guy puts together an 81.2 overall PFF grade and he puts together an 84 PFF pass blocking grade, when he does that in the SEC, that carries more weight to it. We have to acknowledge, we have to appreciate what those numbers mean in context. Here's even more context for you. I've talked about Will Campbell, and I mentioned this during the Will Campbell podcast this week. The idea that Will Campbell, right from the jump, is getting a tremendous challenge every single day in practice by having to go against Keion White. Keion White's length, his athleticism, makes it very difficult for Will Campbell. It's a tough matchup for Campbell. And when you practice every single day against somebody like that, the old iron versus iron cliche comes into play. You can say the same thing about Wilson at Georgia. Think about the guys that Wilson had to practice against when he was at Georgia. We're talking about some of the best. Jalen Carter, one of the best interior defensive linemen in the country. You look at Jordan Davis, just ridiculous skill set for his size. He's practicing against Carter. He's practicing against Davis, but not just those two guys. He practiced against Devontae Wyatt. And you can talk about 4 to 5 other guys. I don't have to name every single one of them. But when you look at the stable of pass rushers, the stable of defensive linemen that Jared Wilson had to face every single day in practice while at Georgia, that can't help but make you better. You have to get better when you're facing that level of player. It's absolutely nuts, the talent he had to go against every single day in practice. The talent that he had to go against every single day in practice was better than the talent that Will Campbell had to go against every day in practice. And Campbell had to go against some dudes like Braden Swinson. And that's why when you play in the SEC, that's why all of these SEC teams, especially the programs that are the upper echelon, when you go to one of those schools, when you get recruited by one of those schools, that's why you go. The gravitas. Not only do you play for a top program, but the level of competition that you're facing in practice and week in and week out, that's going to make you a better football player. And it's going to impress scouts much more when you're playing in a conference like that than some other conference, which means you have a better shot of getting drafted. Not only getting drafted, but getting drafted in the top 100. Getting drafted in the first round, which means you're going to make some money. Would Will Campbell have been the 4th pick overall if he didn't play at LSU? I don't know. I would argue he would not have been a top 5 pick. There were some questions if he should have been a top 5 pick even playing at LSU. If you took him out of that school, if you took him out of that conference, what would the difference be? So the competition level absolutely matters. All right, I got more thoughts on this. Don't forget to help us out on a Friday. Maybe you're watching this on demand over the weekend. Maybe you're listening on demand over the weekend. Don't forget to click that thumbs up as you watch us on YouTube. Always help us with the algorithm. We appreciate it every time that you click that thumbs up. All the likes mean the world to us. Doesn't take a lot of time at all. Not a ton of effort, but we certainly appreciate it. And don't forget to throw comments in, your thoughts on Jared Wilson, your thoughts on this offensive line, your thoughts on the left guard position specifically. And subscribe. Trying to hit 7,000 subscribers. That is the next goal. All right, let's keep on going. Oh, and by the way, Spotify, Apple Pods, friends, rate, review, follow, throw comments in, all of those fun things. Appreciate you. All right, let's continue with Jared Wilson. This idea of Jared Wilson winning the left guard spot and starting there week 1. I think it's possible. I'm not going to sit here and say probable, but I do believe Wilson could capitalize on the current situation. I have mentioned before that the Patriots, they focused on athleticism a number of times during the draft. And there's no better example of that than Wilson. Wilson is insanely athletic. Don't forget, he began his football career in high school. He played soccer all the way up until high school. And as he put it, I love the quote, he started to grow out instead of grow up. So he realized he was going to be a rather big human being. And at that size, he was probably not going to be able to do what he wanted to do in the world of soccer. So he said, why not football? But when you think about soccer, you think about athleticism. You think about footwork and foot speed, nonstop motor, up and down the pitch. So when you look at Jared Wilson and his athleticism, his relative athletic score was 9.84. And I remind you that the RAS only goes up to 10, from 0 to 10. And Wilson plugged in a 9.84. If you're wondering where that puts him amongst centers, I've got that information for you. With that 9.84 RAS, Wilson is ranked 12th all time in RAS at center. Now, of course, you'd have to reconfigure things for guard, kind of throws everything off. Maybe he would have been better. Maybe he would have been slightly worse when you pit him up against the guard position in the RAS history at that position. But at center, we're talking about the 12th most athletic center that has ever been calculated by the RAS, which goes back to 1987. Almost 40 years of relative athletic scores at the center position, and Wilson finished 12th with the numbers that he put up. And if you're wondering, we're talking about a total of 673 centers. I don't know what percentile that is. It's got to be in the high 90s. but being 12th out of 673 centers in RAS, that tells you how athletic of a guy Jared Wilson is. And that matters. It matters because if you're playing guard, you want to be able to get to the second level. You want to be able to climb to the second level in the run game and create those running lanes. And so with the athleticism and the foot speed and the footwork, that allows somebody like Jared Wilson to get out to the second level quicker, right? Get rid of that first block, move on to the second. If you're working duo and you're working with a teammate, get to that second level, do the damage that you got to do. The athleticism. And when you talk about athleticism and you talk about foot speed and footwork, you also have to mention pulling. When you're a guard and you're asked to pull, right? You jump out of that guard spot and you pull to the outside. You try to seal that edge. We know that McDaniels, he enjoys pulling his guards. That's part of the run game. And so if you're going to ask your guard to pull, then it makes it easier to ask when the guy has a 9.84 relative athletic score, because that means he's going to get out. He ran an incredible 40 at his size. That means he's going to be able to pull and get out. He's going to beat the running back. And so the athleticism, the ability to pull, something else about Jared Wilson, his versatility in said run game. At Georgia, he didn't just block for a zone scheme. He didn't just block for a gap run scheme. He blocked for both. He blocked zone and gap run schemes at Georgia. So he has schematic versatility in the run game. And we've heard from these OTAs that there has been a little bit more zone run than you might anticipate when you talk about a Josh McDaniels offense. Usually McDaniels, it's duo, it's downhill, it's gap, it's all those things. It's not necessarily zone run. But we've heard from these OTAs that McDaniels has sprinkled in more zone run scheme as part of his offense. So that versatility, the ability to adapt from gap to zone, zone to gap, that's going to be important. Can you block both of those schemes? Can you consistently block both of those schemes? And the zone run game makes a lot of sense because when you think about, someone like Thomas Brown, who comes from the Sean McVay offense, the coaching tree, that's when you start to see the Shanahan offense, the Kubiak offense, the zone run. And I don't think it's going to be zone exclusively. It's just, can your guys have that versatility? So when you call a zone run, can they get the job done? And Wilson, with his experience at Georgia, being able to block for both the zone and the gap, should tell you that he can get the job done no matter what you ask him to do with the run game. Now, I believe Jared Wilson has a legit shot if he can get healthy and he gets out there on the field and he is a full go when we get to camp. He has a legitimate shot at wrestling the left guard spot away from one of those guys, whether it's Strange or Schweitzer or So or Robinson, whoever it is. I believe he has a legitimate chance to start at left guard. And I believe they're going to give him that opportunity. I'd be shocked if he wasn't given that opportunity. Now, even though I believe he has a legit shot, and I don't think it's crazy to discuss the idea of Wilson being your starting left guard, I think it's unlikely he ends up being your starting left guard. Because the fact is, no matter how impressive he is, whether it's athleticism, it's in-game play, the film, it's his football IQ, all those different things we talk about, the intangibles, the culture, the leadership. The fact is, Wilson had only 12 starts in college, which speaks volumes because he was as good as he was when he had only played 12 games or started 12 games at the collegiate level. And as I mentioned a few moments ago, this is a guy who didn't start playing football until high school. So it really speaks to his natural ability and his raw potential that he played as well as he played and was considered easily a top 100 player. Many pundits had him in their top 75. I wouldn't be shocked if a couple people had him in their top 50. So it really does speak to the raw potential and ability that Wilson has, that he had that reputation heading into the draft, even though he started 12 games at Georgia. But the fact is the fact. He's raw. He's new to the game, relatively speaking. He is certainly new to the position. He didn't move to center until, a couple of years ago. So he's not only new to football, relatively, he's new to center, relatively. And are you really going to put somebody who has that, lack of experience, are you going to put him at left guard? Because you think about the guys that are going to bookend your left guard. We mentioned Bradbury in the questions, and Campbell and the things that we talked about heading into the draft about his lack of length, and sometimes he has issues with speed rushers. And when did Campbell have problems? He didn't have a ton of problems, but when he had problems at LSU, a lot of the time it was giving up the pass rush inside. So if you've got somebody who could give up some pass rush to the inside at left tackle, you best know that your left guard is ready to play. Now, if he's ready to play, the pass block grade would tell you from Pro Football Focus during his time at Georgia, he is more than capable of helping. Jared Wilson is more than capable of helping the pass protection and helping cover for Campbell just in case he gets beat on the inside. But if you don't believe that he is fully ready, then you don't throw him into the deep end, because now you're asking a lot. You got Bradbury questions at center with pass protection. You've got Campbell, who at times has given it up. And then you've got a rookie left guard who you drafted as a center. You're throwing him in the deep end. From the center to the left tackle, there are questions for Drake May. And the top priority is, of course, to keep your quarterback clean. So he's just so new to the game. He's so new to the position. I find it unlikely that he's out there day one, week one, starting at left guard. Now, is there a possibility that he could eventually, by the middle of the season, a little bit over a quarter of the season, is there a possibility or a probability that he gets to left guard? I'd say it's more possible that you see him out there after the first month or so of the season. But week one would be a heavy, heavy ask. That's a big-time ask for a guy with his experience level. And we're also talking about, you drafted him, as I mentioned, as a center. And the reason why he moved to center, and the reason why his projected position in the NFL is center and not guard, is because he doesn't have premium size. So now you've got Bradbury, who's not the biggest dude, at center. You've got Will Campbell, who doesn't have great length or wingspan, at left tackle. And then you're really going to play an undersized left guard if you plug Jared Wilson over into that spot. So not only do you have questions fundamentally and whether or not those guys are going to give up too much pass rush, you also have to look at the size and the questions about their frames and how that works together. That would be a very, very difficult challenge. Not impossible, but he doesn't have premium size. He's going to be on the smaller side. And the final thing I will say about why I think it's unlikely, from day one, is I don't know if Garrett Bradbury is going to be your starting center. Now, I think he will be, but I would not be surprised whatsoever if within the first few weeks of the season, Wilson is out there playing center. Now, you might say, Nick, you just said that he's so raw to the game and he's so new to the game and his experience level. And yes, but if Bradbury's a mess and Wilson's got, a month and a half under his belt, and he has practiced throughout the entire time, then I don't think it's crazy for them to say he's just better than Bradbury. And we might be rushing him a little bit, but he's better than Bradbury. And we got to get him out there because Bradbury's killing us. The pass rush up the middle is just way too much. And we're going to live with some of the rookie mistakes because we believe Jared Wilson is more consistent than Bradbury against the pass rush. So I think it's more likely that Wilson leapfrogs Bradbury than he ends up leapfrogging all those other guys at left guard and starts at left guard. I do believe Jared Wilson, whether it's the middle of the year, 3/4 through the year, I do believe he is going to pay dividends. I do believe he's going to be out there starting for you at some point this season, whether it's at center or left guard. I do think we will get there. I do think there will be enough questions eventually about what you have in Wilson with his raw ability. He gets up to speed practicing. I do think that it is inevitable that Wilson is out there at some point helping you win football games. I just find it unlikely that that would be week 1. I'm giving him a chance. I do think he'll have the opportunity, and I think he's a talented guy. And I love the pick, especially after the trading down a couple of times scenario and then landing him at 95 instead of, 77 or whatever it was. I'm excited about Jared Wilson long-term. I just think it's unlikely week 1 he's out there starting for you. And if I'm wrong, I hope he's starting for you week 1 because of how good he is and what he has shown and not because of how bad somebody else is. I hope he earns that shot on the merits of his own work versus, holy crap, we've got nothing at left guard and Bradbury is a sieve at center. Let's hope that's not the scenario that plays out. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to subscribe. Help a brother out. Everybody enjoy your weekend. Again, don't forget, this is the last Friday podcast until the week of July 14th. Got some personal obligations to take care of, but the week of the 14th, I'm back full-time locked on 5 days a week over there and back here 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 o'clock live Eastern. Appreciate every single one of you. Be safe this weekend, but enjoy yourself. It's going to rain a little bit here in New England, but enjoy yourself. Have a good time, and we will talk on Monday. Appreciate every single one of you.